Hi, everybody. I'm Valerie Gilchrist, and I'm broadcasting to you from Augusta, Georgia. My broadcast is Esther's Purpose, and my guest today is Andrea Landry, and we're going to talk to her in just a minute. But I want to let everybody know that we are on WYTV7 from Charlotte, North Carolina. So before I introduce my guest, I want everyone to know that we are a nonprofit organization, and we do take donations. And those donations help us broadcast nationally and internationally. Our listeners are from across the globe, and we want to encourage them with our broadcast. Through Esther's Purpose, listeners who have been going through various trials of life are encouraged to stay the course. And as we share testimonies from my guests, we not only want to show you that you can not only go through it, but you can come out in victory and with purpose. So thank you all so much for being with us today. And Andrea, what I'm going to do before I let you talk, introduce you. This is Andrea Landry. She is a mental wellness advocate, mentor, and strategist. She grew up in South Central Los Angeles, California, and is currently residing in Baltimore, Maryland. She helps individuals who live with mental illness redefine themselves in spite of their diagnosis. That's awesome. She provides peer support, advice on manageable coping skills, and eliminate personal and societal stigma regarding mental illness. Her goal is to reach people who are finding it difficult to cope with their challenges and remind them that the light at the end of the tunnel is hope and not a train. I love that, Andrea. That is so awesome. Every time I read that light at the end of the tunnel is hope and not a train, that excited me just to hear that. So, Andrea, how are you today?
I am doing just fine. I'm very well, very excited. And, I really like that particular quote, too. I can just remember forever and a day thinking about, how difficult things were and that the light at the end of the tunnel has got to be brighter. It can't get any dimmer. Is that a train coming to hit me? But, as life was getting better and I was healing, it became hope. The negative turned into a positive. So instead of looking at it as an oncoming train to knock me over, I viewed it as hope to help me go through.
Woo, light is hope. That is wonderful. So as you just alluded to when you were going through, let's go back there, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we encourage our audience here at Esther's Purpose through WYTV7. We want to encourage them. So before we hear about how awesome you are now and everything you're doing, from the introduction, want to talk about how you got there. So get us started on how you got to where you are today.
Oh, wow. Let's see. I have always been different of all my mother's children. My mom has 4, and I was always the happy-go-lucky one, the pushover, just everything that I did had to be attention-wise and so on. Things didn't really start hitting home until after I started going through empty nest syndrome. When my children grew up and they left home, I had never identified myself as a person before I had children. I was a teenage mom. So I went from being somebody's daughter to being somebody's mother to just trying to figure out who I was. And since I had literally lived vicariously through my children, when they left, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what to do with life. So I left too. I had found myself in a state of catatonia and a state of numbness. And my mom came over, thank God for her. She came over and found me literally catatonic on the floor in my bedroom. I hadn't showered in days. I hadn't eaten in days. I refused to work. I refused to move. And she came in and told me I stunk and dumped a bucket of cold water on me, told me to take a shower. And then her message was, there is life without children. You can figure that out. So as she was doing that, she encouraged me to go see a therapist. And then the therapist that I got made life even worse because he was very condescending. He sounded like Ben Stiles from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
Every time I would say something, he would repeat it. So I would say, I'm feeling really irritable, and he'd go, I'm feeling really irritable. On and on, everything. And I asked him, so you going to repeat everything I say? He said, are you going to repeat everything? I said, all right. Next thing you know, the question was, what's the longest you've ever stayed awake? And I said, 7 days straight. He
Woo.
said, you have bipolar disorder. Take this pill. Don't get fat. See you next week. I was devastated. It felt
Wow.
like he had held a gun to my head and pulled the trigger and blew my brains out. Because
Mm.
all I had ever known about mental illness was what you see in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh.
He had just told me I was crazy. Nurse Ratched was coming to get me. I was going to be in the hug me jacket forever, and that was my life. That's what I believed. And in that instant, in that moment, I was really angry. So for like over a year, just dealing with trying to figure out what it was, why I have it, because he never told me how I got it, if I could give it back, if it was curable, nothing. Just take this pill, don't get fat, come back later.
Wow.
So I fired him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I got me a new therapist, and even she was at her wit's end because the medication that he had given me, I had such really bad side effects from it. I'm one of those extremely super sensitive people. If it has a side effect, I'm going to get it 15 times worse than what it said.
Mm-hmm.
So medication was a huge challenge for me. So my mom was telling me, why don't you go look it up? Look up what bipolar is, understand what it is, you know, and then on top of that, I started having PTSD symptoms and anxiety. So those were two other diagnoses that I had gotten on top of the bipolar. And once I started reading about the different symptoms, like the depression, the severity of the depression, losing interest in what I once enjoyed, the mania, going out and spending money I don't have, being overzealous about too many things, too much energy, staying awake for several days at a time. It all began to make sense. And I said, okay, so now that I know what I have, how can I help myself? What's next? What can keep me out of the hospital?
Okay.
And that began my journey. You know, I was in California at the time, and I'm looking for a different therapist, and I kept running into the person who diagnosed me and did not want to be bothered with him. And I was living in this small town. So I began to research, and I found myself in Baltimore, Maryland. I found a school here that helped individuals who live with mental health challenges learn coping skills, learn how to manage things, and learn how to function in everyday life.
Okay, that's good. Because, you know, a lot of people, they don't, when they're sick, no matter what it is, mental, physical, emotional, no matter what it is, they don't do that. They don't have that in them to even try to research. You know, we have a tendency just to trust the doctors and, you know, take whatever they give us. And, you know, they'll tell us sometimes that, you know, you just got to work through the side effects. Oh, they'll go away, or, you know, whatever, or this is what you really need to help. And so what gave you that instinct to go past that kind of thought process and really research for yourself?
My mother, mainly. And see, I did have that. I had many doctors, okay, you've tried this pill, try this pill. Okay, you've tried that pill, try this pill. I tried over 15 different medications
Oh my goodness.
in a year's time. And when I say I get the side effects 15 times worse, when there were times I literally could not get up out of bed. My mom was advocating for me. She says, my daughter can't get up. She can't function. She can't move. There's got to be a different way. And so I asked my therapist, I said, where is it written that you have this diagnosis, therefore you have to take this pill in order to function? I said, because as you can see, this isn't working for me. And I was having real bad suicidal ideation. You know, I found myself taking my medication with a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne or
Mhm.
any kind of alcohol I could find to help me get through the fact that I had this illness I couldn't get rid of. And I
Mhm.
still didn't know how I got it, which was really irritating, you know?
Mhm.
So, just my mom, she was telling me, there's got to be a way. Just go and start researching. So I read this book by K. Jamison Redfield. It's called An Unquiet Mind.
Oh.
And she was another motivating factor in my life. She showed me that you could have a mental illness and still strive for what it is that you want. Between her and NAMI, and I'll get to NAMI in just a second, they were like my driving force.
Mm.
But she's a doctor. Okay. But while she was going to medical school and everything, she was really going through her mental health symptoms. And what really got me was that she had gone abroad and had spent every penny she had and found herself doing donuts in the parking lot of her college.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, that's me.
Oh
And
no.
it really rang true. I said, because I remember in high school, doing cartwheels down the middle of a busy intersection during rush hour traffic.
Wow.
And as I was reading about her doing those donuts, I remembered me doing those cartwheels in the middle of the street and going, okay, this makes sense. And the fact that she had gotten her doctorate degree. So I began to look up other people and found other celebrities. I mean, Ben Stiller has bipolar disorder. Look at how many movies he's been in. Look at how far he's come. Janet Jackson has depression. Okay, look at how successful she is. They had their times when they've slowed down and taken care of themselves, but they are not only household names, but they are making it. They are making something of themselves. And that was a huge encouragement for me. It's like, okay, if they can, I know I can. My
Yeah.
mother is undiagnosed, has been living with depression all my life. She raised 4 kids by herself.
Ooh.
College, got a degree, and was working in the criminal justice system. I know I can do it.
Can I ask you a question? Let me stop you for just a moment. Okay, so you just said that your mother was living through it and just kept going and didn't stop. What do you think the difference is between, because was your mother ever diagnosed with depression, or do you know this in retrospect that she had it?
She will tell you herself she has it.
Okay.
She's diagnosed. And I've encouraged her many times to go and get a diagnosis. My mom's at a point now to where she feels as though a therapist can't really give her the kind of advice that she needs or the kind of guidance that she needs. So what she's done now today, since I have come so far, is that she'll actually listen to me and I help her get through some symptoms. But when we were growing up, her thing was to isolate. She likes to read.
Okay.
My mom will read like 4 or 5 books in a couple of hours. And she reads just that much. And so that was how she dealt with her depression.
So her
Besides,
coping mechanism was reading until she would read her way out of it.
Exactly. She would get lost in the story. She likes romance novels. She would get lost in the stories. And that's how she would cope.
Okay, so so hers is depression, yours was bipolar?
Yes, bipolar, anxiety, and PTSD.
And so do you find that those things run generationally in families?
As I've gotten to know a little bit about what's going on with my family, yes, it does. My father had some dementia and some, I want to say some depression and some other things, even though he tested as a genius.
Wow.
He definitely had, he was also an alcoholic. And when he passed on, I think they said he had a touch of schizophrenia. My aunt, who committed suicide a few years ago, had depression and bipolar disorder. My older sister has depression. My baby sister lived with ADHD and bipolar disorder. So yes, it is definitely going through the genes.
And so what do you think is the difference between someone, and I'm gonna let you answer this, let me ask the question, and then I'm gonna do something in for just a moment, but I want you to think about this answer. What do you think is the difference between someone who can survive that and function through it, whether through therapy, choosing for therapy, or like your mom, finding things on their own to fix it, and those who just never really realize it and think that's just them and really don't function. And the reason why I want to know that is because, again, I'm Valerie Gilchrist. This is Esther's Purpose, and we're broadcasting from WYTV7 out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we want to make sure that we are encouragement to everyone. We want to make sure that people see that light at the end of the tunnel, and that, that they can break free of this. And when I say break free, I don't necessarily mean that, you're going to get rid of it, but break free of the bondage that it puts you in, that you can be in control over it. Am I saying that right?
I like how you put it. The way I like to say is management.
Okay.
It's survive.
Okay.
I guess in a sense, survive is a good way, because, every time when people are going through their symptoms of whatever dis-ease they have, whether it be mental or physical, it always feels like it's the end. It always feels like you can't get through it. And then once you've gotten to a point of, I want to say, calmness or mellowness, then it feels like you survived. I like to say manage, because in managing, it means that you're working with it.
Okay.
Once you figure out what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and you have an idea, and then you put yourself on that path of, okay, I'm not going to allow this to continually beat me up, to continually put me down. I'm going to go through this and live through this and not suffer through this. Then it becomes a management.
Oh, that's good.
As opposed to someone who is undiagnosed and just going through it. For years, I didn't get diagnosed until, my goodness, I was almost 40.
Okay.
By the time I was diagnosed, and I'm 51 today.
Mm-hmm.
And my family was like, well, we already knew you were kind of off.
Yeah.
They accepted it, and that was the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
My children, because I raised them without knowing, they were like, oh, things make sense now.
Right.
Because it was just a notion of, oh yeah, okay, that's just how she is. That's just the way it is. We'll just deal with it and keep on moving.
Mm-hmm.
You just go with the flow with the way things are. It's kind of like in the African American community, there's always that aunt, that uncle, that cousin. You always have one family member that is a little special.
Right, right.
And you treat them as such, you let them be the way they are, and then you keep on going, or you kind of hide them away so nobody else sees them.
Mm-hmm.
But in the family, they treat them, they love on them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And try and help them get along in society as best as possible. My mom was one of them no holds barred kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say I grew up in prison, because that's literally how she raised us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very stern, very strict, and this is the way it was. Her philosophy was, you make your bed, you lie in it. Okay. So if I was having, as she would call it, one of my oh woe is me moments, or one of my moments to where I was feeling up, she would let me go through it and then say, okay, you made that mess, you clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So it was never a way to pay attention to it. So for others who are going through it, what I would say is this: if it's prolonging, if it has been going on for a while, and you feel as though it's not conducive with the way that you want to be, or making you feel good, by all means, go and get help. Go and talk to a therapist. Talk to your family doctor first. Let them know what your symptoms are, because nowadays you have to be referred to for everything.
Right.
And then be referred to a therapist. And there's no shame in talking to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I went to go talk to one, again, it wasn't explained to me what it was. And my thought, that stigma, that societal stigma, everybody's
right.
Talk to a therapist, you're crazy. You do this, you're crazy. Crazy has this real bad connotation.
Mm-hmm.
However, the therapist is there to listen to you, to help you see outside of the box. When you have somebody that's looking from the outside in, it gives you a better perspective on what it is that you need. So therefore, that therapist is helping you much more than you think, much more than your friends, much more than your family, much more than a loved one, because those people are inside you along with you. So they see outside stuff, but they're still seeing your stuff.
Oh yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, again, I want to say that I'm Valerie Gilchrist. This is Esther's Purpose, and we're broadcasting from WYTV7 out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I want to remind everyone that WYTV7 is a nonprofit organization, and if you would like to sow a seed into making sure that we continue to broadcast nationally and internationally, that would be awesome. $5, it goes a long way. You would be surprised. So whatever you have to give, we would so appreciate it, because we want to continue to impact lives. I want to remind you that that money goes for our ability to continue to broadcast nationally and internationally so that people can hear around the world, people like Andrea, who is talking about mental illness and things that people don't want to talk about those things. And Andrea, you've just been sharing so transparently, and I appreciate that. And I know as I continue to do these broadcasts, people are going to be thinking, wow, does Valerie is there anything she hasn't gone through? But I actually have twin daughters, and they actually turned 36 on Sunday. And the younger one actually is ADHD. And I wasn't aware of it. I knew that there were struggles because I would get telephone calls from daycare and pre-K going, hey, need you to come deal with this. And what was always shocking to me was when she was at home with myself and her twin sister, I didn't see any of the things that they told me about. Right. It wasn't until there was a director of one of the daycare she was going to that literally called me off my job and said, come here now. And she brought me in her office where there was a two-way mirror, and I am watching my child, jumping up and down on this table and just acting like a maniac. And it shocked my world. Because when people were telling me things, I couldn't, because she didn't do it at home. And I'm thinking, well, what are y'all doing? Because we always want to blame somebody else. Well, what are y'all doing to her that, causes this? And when I saw her, I was just blown away that this was a reality. And then as she got older, it was more and more and more, all the way up until I actually had to put her in charter hospital for 8 weeks, because at that point, I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew I needed some help. And they actually diagnosed her with oppositional defiant behavior. And my daughter, her sister and I, we went to classes to learn as a family how to cope. And for a long time, before I did anything with medication, I started noticing there were certain things that she would eat that would make it worse: sugar, carbs, red dye. So once I had gotten all the way down to where I knew it wasn't food triggered or food didn't amplify it, school was still always an issue. And I was forever going to school, trying to advocate for her. And then I finally did take her to a children's hospital, and she was diagnosed with ADHD and put her on meds. And I just want to say this, because I know a lot of people are concerned about medications. I did not over-medicate my child. I kind of advocated for her myself. And so I would give her just enough to be able to get on the bus and get to lunch. At lunch, the nurse would give her a second one to get her from lunch to home on the bus. I never gave it to her in the evening when she was home with me on the weekends, holidays, summer break, spring break. I never gave, because I didn't have that issue. So I didn't see it. I always wanted her to be able to manage it. There were things that you just needed to manage because you weren't in a situation that you couldn't control what was going on. So it helped her young take ownership, of how she was feeling. And even now as an adult, now she kind of likes being spun up. And sometimes she'll do things. She'll eat a Mr. Goodbar and drink a Coca-Cola because she wants to, feel like that. And she'll do it. But at the same time, she is, in retail management, and she is over, a large group of people. And what I encouraged her to do was take who you are. This is you. And because she never could keep a job, and she couldn't, I helped her and, and pushed her to graduate from high school, but she didn't want to take her medicine. And I made a deal with her. I said, if you'll take this medicine until you at least graduate from high school, from then on, it'll be your choice. And she stopped taking it after high school, and she just failed. And until she finally listened to what I told her. Retail management loves for people to be excited. This is your area. You can talk and you can be around people, you can socialize, and nobody's going to keep you in a box. And she is so successful in that area because that's who she is who they want. Right. And so once she found her niche, that really helped her be okay with who she is. So I really do, from a personal standpoint, understand what you're saying. So let's move now to where you're now. How did you get to where you're now, who you are, helping people with that?
Okay, I want to say something really quick before I get there, because your story reminds me so much of my son, because we went through the same thing.
Okay.
You know why she didn't do that at home? You gave her a different interactive method, because I used to have that issue with my oldest son. I thought he had it too. That boy was fast from the moment he was born, and I mean really fast. He got teeth like 3 and 4 at a just did everything really fast. And I had asked the doctor to give me medicine for him because I couldn't keep up with him. And just like your child is dead, I'm like, well, what are you doing to him? So I would go in there and I would watch him, and what would happen was he would get his work, finish it before everybody else, and then go help them do theirs. He was looking around, he would help the others, help nobody else, right? But what made him slow down, because I had the same thing, the red dye and the sugar. That's what the doctor told me. He wouldn't give me no medicine. He said, don't give him no red dye, no sugar, nothing, right? So I would really monitor everything he ate. But it was 6th grade that everything turned around. His teacher put him in theater. When she put him in theater, it redirected his attention, and he became a model student.
That's awesome. Yes, we had 2 different stories, because that never worked. We took everything away, but she still, I think I still can't explain it, but she, even as an adult now, when she gets spun up, she'll come, she lives in Atlanta, she'll come here. And being a rap, I'm her calming thing. And I'm glad that I am, that I can give her that. And she can come here and just kind of rest and, and get herself back together if she kind of gets off track. And I'm grateful for that. What I want to do, I want to remind everybody that I am Valerie Gilchrist. This is WYTV7 out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been having a great conversation with Andrea, and she's talking to us about mental health. And we have a few more minutes to go, Andrea. So I do want to give you the opportunity to talk about what you're doing now to help people in these situations we're talking about.
Gotcha. So I was introduced to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is NAMI, back in 2006. And they helped me to learn the biology about mental illness and also about relapse prevention. And that is what started me on my goal of helping other people. I had become a trainer and a mentor with them. And I developed my own organization called POWER, which is Progressive Organized Wellness and Power and Recovery. Wow. And as I learned more about my symptoms and how to help myself and stop identifying with my bipolar. So I don't no longer say I am bipolar. I say I live with bipolar, because I am Andrea. I am not my diagnosis.
Yeah.
I began to write different workbooks, and in my workbooks, I started interacting with other people as well. Listening to them talk about how lost they were when they received their diagnosis, and then watching them identify themselves as diagnosis. That's what made me go out.
Yeah.
Because it's so important that we embrace ourselves. We live with so many different things. We live with headaches. We live with diabetes. We live with, jobs, but we can also live with these mood disorders as well. Whenever I go out and do a presentation and I'm talking with other people and I'm listening to how they're struggling through trying to manage their anxiety, manage their depression, manage some of the voices or whatever that's going on within themselves, it brings me to a point of different coping skills that I have learned along the way. And in just helping one person shows me that not only have I come to a point to where I'm not triggered so much that I can reach out to other people, but it lets me feel good that I've not only helped that person, but I've helped their entire inner circle.
Yes, that's awesome.
Family, their friends, their loved ones, their husbands or wives or what have you. And it changes it goes about changing their thought process, and it also touches into that societal that we were talking about before.
Yeah, that is awesome.
You start talking to other people about what's going on. The only influence that they usually have is what's on the news, what's
Right.
on the news, what
Exactly.
is in TV shows. So that's the societal part. Until we can change what they're saying, and the fact that the actors and actresses are coming out now saying that they're suffering from these things, that's helping to change some of the societal perception. Therefore, it changes the internal perception as well.
Yes.
It's okay to go and see a therapist. Saying the fact that that light at the end of the tunnel is not a train trying to run you down. That's hope trying to embrace you.
Ooh, that is just, yes, ma'am. That is so good. And I so thank you for you sacrificing your time today and come out and talk to us, because mental illness is a real thing, and there's still times that people have a stigma about it. And you're right. You know, it is great that we can embrace that. I just want to say again that I'm Valerie Gilchrist. This is Esther's Purpose. We are broadcasting for WYTV7 out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Please find us on Facebook, like us, share us, follow us, do all of that. You can contact us through there. You can contact me through Esther's Purpose on Facebook. You can contact me to talk about the programs, to, you know, if you want to be a guest on the show, if you want me to become and be a guest as far as a speaking engagement with you all, contact us through there. But make sure that you follow us and just, you know, because we really just need that support of letting people know that it is okay to have, I want to go back and say it the way you said it at the end. You're not your condition. How did you say that?
You're not your diagnosis.
You are not your diagnosis. You are you. Thank you all so much for just being with us today and hearing us and listening to Andrea share with us about mental illness. You all have a great day, and we'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.